Alright, so in this video we're going to be looking at some of the more basic CSS styling, some of which we've already done in the HTML sections. Alright, so we're going to just work our way up to CSS3 and the more advanced aspects of CSS. Alright, so let's just go ahead and put something in here. We'll put an H1 and we'll just say welcome. Alright, and we're going to be working within style tags in the head of the page, only because I don't want to switch back and forth between files. But if this were a website or an application that was going into production, I would use it as an external style sheet. Alright, so let's say body. Okay, so some things you might see in a body styling would be font family, which will say Arial, and you can add secondary families as well. Let's say sans serif, and let's do font size, which will say 13 pixels. Alright, now if we want to style the H1, we could simply put that in and say we want the color to be red. Alright, and we'll go ahead and put a paragraph in here. Okay, and we'll say paragraph. So let's say we want to align that to the center. We could say text align to the center. Alright, and let's put another paragraph. And this paragraph we may not want to be centered. We may just want that one. So this is a good example of where we should use a class. So let's say we had a class called text center, and then up here we could say p.text center. Okay, so that's going to just take that paragraph and put it to the center. Now, if I was to put the class on here, text center, and save, you can see that that's not going to work because we specified that this should only be paragraphs. If I was to get rid of that, the P, then you can see it's going to apply to the H1. Now we may want all of this to be in the center, so we could put a div around it and say class text center, and then everything in there should then be centered. Alright, so I want to move along here, and we're going to create a div. And let's give this a class. Actually, let's give it an ID of box1. And then we'll do div ID box2. Alright, and let's just put some text in here. Okay, so we get these two divs. Let's add up here, we'll say box1. Alright, so I'm going to just add some styles here. First thing I want to do is give it a background. Okay, we're just going to work with box1 for a little bit. So we'll give it a background of black, and let's give it a color of white. Alright, so there's our box. Let's go ahead and make it a little shorter. We'll give it a width of 200 pixels. Okay, so that's gonna... No, that's not gonna do that because I put it in box 2. Alright, so now we have a box that's 200 pixels wide. Now, you can see that the text is right up flush with the sides. If we want to add some spacing in there, we can add some padding. Now we can say padding top 20 pixels, and that'll just give us spacing on the top. Okay, we can do the same thing all the way around if we go padding bottom and padding right, padding left. Now there is an easier way to do this, which I'll show you on box 2. I'm just going to kind of give you the long version of the styling up here and then shorten it for box 2. All right, now we also will probably want to push it away from elements around it. So margin takes care of the spacing outside of the box. So if I was to just copy these paddings and go ahead and just change that to margin. Okay, so now it's going to push everything away 20 pixels. Alright, another thing we could do is add a border. So we can say border width, and we'll set that to 3 pixels. Then we can say border color, set that to red, and border style we can set to solid. Alright, so if we take a look at that, now you can see we have our border. Alright, now what I'm going to do is go into box 2, and let me just copy some of this stuff. Actually, I'll copy it all. And then I'm going to change the background to blue. Let's see, keep the width. Now for the padding, let's go ahead and save that. So the padding, if we want 20 pixels around the whole thing, we can actually just get rid of all of these except one, and then just remove the top and just have padding 20 pixels. And then we can do the same thing with the margin. Alright, so if I save that and reload, you can see we get the same result. It looks a lot more cleaner than this. Now if we wanted to, let's say, have 30 pixels on just the top, what we could do is say, let's go into padding and say 30 pixels, 20, 20. So when you do this, this is top, top right, bottom left. Alright, so if I save that, now you can see we have 30 on the top. Alright, this would be the bottom right here. We can go ahead and reload. Now we have it on the top and bottom. Now if we want the top and bottom and the right and left to be the same, we can actually just go like this. Alright, so 30 on the top, 20 on the sides. Go ahead and reload, and you can see we get the same result. Alright, and you can do that same exact thing with margin. For the border, we can actually get rid of color and width and all that. Just have border and just include those things in here. So 3 pixels, red. Actually, let's make it green. 3 pixels, green, solid. And there we go. Okay, so this is a lot shorter and cleaner than this. And I'm actually going to change this padding just to have 20 on all sides. Alright, so we can also float things. So let's say box 1 we want to float to the left, and box 2 will float to the right. Okay, reload, and now you can see that they're floating. Now if I was to add something under this, under the boxes, let's just put a div and we'll just say hello and reload, and you can see that it ends up here somewhere, which isn't what we want. We most likely want it to be below these boxes. So what we'll have to do is clear that float, and we can do that by adding another div. We'll give it a class of clear, and then up here we'll say dot clear and say clear both. Okay, so we want to clear both floats, so now it continues down here. Alright, so what I want to do now is create an unordered list and show you some things we can do with that. So we'll have an li, we'll say list item, and I'm just going to give this a class of my list. Alright, so up here in the CSS we'll say dot my list, and let's just specify UL right here, and we'll save it and see what it looks like. Okay, so this is just a default list, what it looks like. Let's say we want to remove these bullet points. We could use the list style property and set that to none. So now you can see that those go away. And you'll also notice that there's some automatic padding with unordered lists. It's pushed over by default. If you want to get rid of that, we could just specify padding 0. Alright, so now you can see it moves over. Alright, now let's add some line height to separate the list items a little bit. And we're going to say 2.2 em. Now, em or em is a unit of measure with CSS, and basically it's relative to the font size. So this would basically mean 2.2 times whatever that font size is. Okay, it's relative. We could also use pixels, which would be absolute. Okay, no matter how big the font is, the pixels in the line height will be the same. Alright, so let's do that. And if we save, now you can see they're separated a lot more. And we may want to put a border in there, but we're actually going to want to do that to the list item. So we'll say ul.mylist li. Alright, and then in here we'll say border bottom. Okay, we can put a border on any side. 1 pixel. Let's do dotted. And color will be gray. Alright, so now you can see we have a nice border below each list item. Now we can also remove things with CSS. So let's go back up to the H1 tag up here, and let's go ahead and set visibility, and we're going to set that to hidden. Okay, if we go ahead and save that and I reload, you'll see that the H1 is now hidden. Alright, now there's still a space there. It's treating it as if it was there, it's just not showing us the actual text. Alright, there's another way we can actually get rid of it and pretty much make it so that it's not there at all, and that's by saying display none. Okay, if we reload, now you can see there's no space or anything there. There's no trace that an H1 should even be there. Alright. Now we can also use display to display things as either a block or inline. Okay, so by default an H1 is a block element, meaning that whatever comes after it will go on a separate line. So if we say display inline, you'll see that it still looks like it's a block element, and the reason for that is because the paragraph underneath it is a block element. If we were to also add a P here and make paragraphs inline and reload, now you can see that they're right next to each other. Okay, they're both inline. Okay, I just wanted to specify that and get rid of that. Alright, so that's all set. Now we're going to go ahead and stop here, and in the next video we're going to talk a little bit about positioning and using a background image.